Hello guys, this first recording is going to go through Unit 1, the LC Unit 1 in your course, which is talking about the persuasive speech. This is what I kind of like to refer to as the drama club. This is where you get to take a topic that you're really passionate about or that you think is really important, and you get to tell me about it using your actual voice and language and speech instead of doing it in writing. So this can be a lot of fun. This is a brief look at your schedule for this first week. So let me try to get it in the screen for you. On Monday, you're going to be doing LC 1.01, and that is just a brief introduction to semester 2. On Tuesday the 15th, you are doing LC 1.02, the introduction to persuasive speech, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We'll also talk a little bit today about repurposing a persuasive essay into a speech. So if you did your persuasive essay in the fall, you can use the same topic and use that essay and repurpose it into your speech. Thursday is 1.04, practicing the persuasive speech. And then on Friday, the lesson talks about delivering the persuasive speech, and your actual speech assignment will be assigned on Friday the 18th. That speech is actually not due until Tuesday the 22nd. So you've got a long weekend to get that speech just how you want it. So the first thing you need to think about is, what is your persuasive topic? You are more than welcome to use the persuasive topic that you used in the fall for your persuasive essay if you have it. If you didn't complete that essay, or if you're brand new to K-12 and you didn't do that assignment in the fall with us, then it's totally up to you to come up with your own persuasive topic. It needs to be persuasive, something that you can argue for. And your speech will be trying to persuade me to agree with you in your topic. So these are the goals for Unit 1. We want to analyze the differences between a persuasive speech and a persuasive essay. We're going to review the elements of a persuasive speech, including its structure, thesis statement, rhetorical devices, and logical and emotional appeals. Research examples of rhetorical devices, analyze different levels on the rubric. We're going to spend a lot of time on that today. And then creating a persuasive presentation. So let's talk about, what are some of the differences between an academic persuasive essay and a speech on the same topic. So the differences that we have to look at are the differences in what do I do when I'm writing versus when I am speaking. A lot of these things are very similar, but we will change some things up when we are speaking that we wouldn't necessarily do the same way in our writing. But both persuasive writing and persuasive speaking deal with a clearly defined issue that has two sides. It's that arguable issue. Okay, you want to begin with a hook that captures your audience's attention. Include a thesis statement near the beginning to make the audience distinctly aware which side you are favoring. I should know within the first 2 or 3 lines of your speech which side you're on. You want to provide reasons and researched evidence in the body of the work that support your thesis. You also want to make sure that you use a variety of types of evidence. These could include facts, statistics, examples, anecdotes, expert opinions, and quotations. You want to appeal mostly to a person's logic, but you also want to tie in that emotional component. You want to make a logical argument, but you also want to appeal to a person's emotions. Avoid logical fallacies. Use the connotations of language to sway the reader's opinion without using unrealistically loaded language. And then vary your sentence length and structure to hold the audience's interest. This gives your speech, especially when you're saying your speech, this gives your speech some variety. You have some shorter sentences mixed in with some longer sentences. It kind of helps the flow of your speech, keeps it interesting. And then you want to conclude by restating your important ideas in different words and by stirring the audience's emotions, often issuing a call to action. So let's talk about this idea of rhetoric. Rhetoric is the art of effective or persuasive speaking or writing, especially the use of figures of speech and other compositional techniques. Also, language designed to have a persuasive or impressive effect on its audience. In your essay, you might have something that sounds like this at the beginning. Once again, Dad and I were stuck in a traffic jam. The trip from our house to the library usually takes 5 minutes, but this time we found ourselves sitting in the midst of a river of cars. That is perfectly fine for an essay, but if you're giving a speech and you're going to be saying this out loud, you would want to change up your wording a little bit. So it might look differently. You might say something like, "Have you ever been stuck in a traffic jam? I mean, really stuck? One day, my dad and I were driving to the library, and up ahead I could see a river of cars. A frozen river." So when I'm saying my speech, I want to change the words. I want to make it sound more conversational. The wording in the essay is perfectly appropriate for an essay, but when I'm saying a speech, I want to take my words and I want to make it sound more conversational. I want to be more engaged with the people that are listening to me. So I would change up the wording a little bit. These two items are saying the same things. It's just the way that they're saying them is a little bit different. Another big difference between speeches created from essays and the essay themselves is the level of language. Usually, a speech is less formal than a written essay, okay? The vocabulary, the sentence structure is less formal than the essay from which it derives, okay? So the reason is because long words and long sentences are harder to absorb when somebody is listening to them rather when someone is reading them. So you probably notice this. If you're reading something, you can read a really long sentence and understand it because you can go back and look at it again. If somebody is speaking to you and they speak in this very long sentence or they're using all of these big fancy words, it's more difficult for them to understand you. And as a speaker, the last thing you want to do is lose your audience because they don't understand what you're saying. A good speaker always reaches the audience on its own level. For many audiences, that means using some informal vocabulary and some shorter sentences. Speakers usually choose everyday words, but not slang. So you want to choose vivid words to keep your audience's ears awake, as well as to create that clear picture in the audience's mind of what you're talking about. When your listeners can imagine specific people, places, things, and experiences, they're going to pay more attention than if they're only hearing your words about abstract ideas. So at the end of the day, you need to sound like an expert. You need to sound like what you are arguing for, that you are an expert in that. So if this means using big words and complex sentences, so be it. Just remember that if you're doing those things and you lose your audience's attention, then you're not going to get anywhere with them. Okay? Each of these elements that we're going to look at, has its own line on the rubric for the persuasive speech. The tone, the pace, and the emphasis. Tone expresses how the speaker feels about a subject. For example, the tone may be serious or it could be ironic. It may be appreciative or it may be disdainful. It could be lighthearted or it could be somber. The tone gives color to your words. Your pace simply means whether you as the speaker are speaking slowly or quickly. Effective speakers don't keep a constant mechanical pace throughout the speech. You don't want to sound like a robot. You can speed up, you can slow down to appeal to the listener's emotions. For example, if I say something really fast and I sound like I'm really excited, that's going to convey a feeling of excitement for you, right? If I slow down and I really enunciate what I'm trying to say, that may convey some thoughtful intensity. So the pace that I speak, the pace that I choose to use is going to vary throughout the speech based on the emotion that I'm trying to express. Emphasis is the speaker's way of using bold face, strong emphasis on words. Say, listen, this is important. Okay? There are a couple of links here in this PowerPoint that explain the importance of pitch, pace, and tone. You won't be able to click on them directly from here, but I will upload the PowerPoint for you, and they will be live in that PowerPoint. One super important thing, do not read your speech when you deliver it. You don't want to sound like a robot that you're just reading a piece of paper. Consider making note cards with your high points, but you do want to sound a little bit spontaneous when you speak. You want to sound like you're speaking. You don't want to sound like you're reading, okay? You want to sound like you're engaging in a conversation with your audience. All right, we're going to spend the next few minutes just looking at the rubric for this assignment. So the boxes up at the top, those blue boxes, are what your rubric says. Those are the expectations in the rubric. I'm not going to read through every box for you. What I've done down underneath is kind of broken those keywords down for an A presentation versus a C presentation, and we're talking about grade-wise. Your delivery of your introduction is super important because this is what hooks your reader. So an A presentation, an A speech, is going to have a compelling introduction. It's going to grab my attention. It's going to warm up the listener to what you're trying to say, and the thesis statement is going to be obvious at the very beginning. A C presentation would have an introduction that's kind of okay. It could definitely be better, and I would classify more as simply an attempt. You tried to deliver an introduction, but you weren't super successful with it. Support of your thesis statement. For an A speech, your evidence should be carefully chosen, compellingly explained. This is where you get some emotion in there. Compel your reader with your explanation of your evidence. Okay, a C speech, your evidence usually supports your thesis, but it's not very clearly explained, and you leave a lot for your listener to try to figure out on their own. The use of rhetorical devices. These are things like parallel structure, refrain, imagery, figurative language, repetition, quotations, your mode of address. All of these things are rhetorical devices. An A speech is going to have at least 4 of these rhetorical devices woven in throughout their speech, okay? That's figurative language. That's the use of repetition, using quotations in your speech. All of those things, if you've got 4 or more, you can kind of weave them in so that they flow naturally in your speech and they support your thesis statement. That is an A-level speech. A C speech might have 2 or 3 rhetorical devices, but they still need to be used well so that they don't take away from what you're trying to say. The delivery of your conclusion. Remember, this is the last thing that your listener is going to remember. So for an A speech, the delivery of your conclusion should be excellent. It should stir your listener's emotions, and your sale is compelling. You've made a sale, you've made your point. A C speech might have a decent conclusion, maybe a call to action, but nothing extraordinary. Your tone, we talked about this a little bit. An A speech, the tone should be compelling and professional. With a C speech, your tone would be inconsistent. You might even sound like you're not very interested. You're just reading through to get the assignment done. And pace, we talked about this also. For an A speech, your pacing should be done skillfully. It should vary. It should add meaning to the words that you're saying. In a C speech, your pace might vary. Maybe you speak faster in some places and slower in others, but it doesn't add any meaning to what you're saying. And finally, your use of emphasis. An A speech, your emphasis would be consistent, compelling, and add to your support of the thesis statement. With a C speech, you're just using emphasis every now and then to make a point. Your use of multimedia slides. This is something that you'll have to upload for me, but make sure that anything that you upload, any multimedia that you use, is relevant and that it clearly demonstrates your point. It's demonstrating what you're trying to say. That's an A speech. A B speech or a C speech might have some data. It might be kind of clear, but it doesn't necessarily add to your speech. And then the overall impression of your speech is compelling. It gives me something to seriously consider. You sound like you're entirely in control the whole time and you sound professional. That is an A speech. A C speech is positive. You're generally in control, but there's nothing just over the top that is compelling or gives me a real call to action. Okay, so that's a very brief overview. The lessons in the course go into much more detail on all of those topics. There are some things for you to practice. Don't let this freak you out. I like this quote. It says, "You don't have to be great to get started, but you have to get started to be great." So have fun with this unit. Decide on your topic. That's the first thing you need to do. What is your speech topic? What is your persuasive topic? Decide on that and then look through the course lessons and see where you can get with it. And as always, email me if you need help on your speeches. I will be back on Thursday. We'll have Thursday and Friday before your speech is due the following week. So email me if you need help on your speeches, and I look forward to hearing from you guys soon.